in 11th place, we have
Say it.
Dragorustaceans. Why are these guys going to do this? We have Gustus, Dragon, Garn, VG Master, and Shifter. So I had them in 11th. Runt had them in 10th. Spider had them in 11th. And Community Predictions had them in 10th, which gave them overall 11th place. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Who wants to talk about these guys first? I will point out
I'll
that
jump in.
before people go like, oh, why is there a random Darwin player? Shifter has moved to Canberra as well. Anyway, you go,
Yeah.
Slides.
We just did our qualifiers recently, and that was in Canberra, and then Canberra hosted like some random just like training comp in the lead up to Nats, and we versed a team very similar to this, and it was actually really good to see some of the Canberra players in teams and competing. This team, like as long as they put Shifter in a base, I think like this team will play fairly well. When you've got players like VG just like at your base for 12 minutes, not like attacking or defending, just being annoying. And then you got the rest of the team running around. I think they have like enough experience to really knock some teams down. Having them in 11th, I think, is kind of just like you never know where to put Canberra teams because some comps they will just shoot up and demolish everyone, and then other teams they just don't click. So, yeah, I think from what I've seen versing them in Canberra, it's very promising, and I think they could get up a couple positions. But yeah, I think for me the biggest thing I want to see is like some real good strategy, not relying on dumping too much because this like team roster seems like strong enough to not do that.
What are the Canberra teams looking like for nationals? I haven't paid enough attention to the thing. Is this like pretty close to a team, or is it bits and pieces from all of them?
I think this is pretty close. Right? I haven't looked at the nationals listing ever, but yeah, I think from what like discussions we had and just talking with players in Canberra, this should be pretty close to their top team.
Yeah, cool. Well, yeah. So I think Canberra. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Canberra wasn't at Pre-Nuts too, or were they?
I think they were.
They were.
Let me check.
I don't think they were.
Oh, was it? Yeah, no, there was one they were. Yeah.
So a lot of these players were at Pre-Nuts 1. So again, they've got that Helios 2 exposure. They've got that exposure to the arena, even though the arena has changed a bit since Pre-Nuts 1. So that'll do them well and put them, I think comfortably put them above any of the teams below that haven't been to Hobart yet and gotten that exposure. But yeah, I think from memory, when versing this team at Pre-Nuts 1, there was a lot of dumps. And I think they were able to get some success with it at Pre-Nuts 1. But I feel like if they rely too heavily on these dumps at this Pre-Nuts, with the quality of teams that are going to be above them, that should know how to deal with dumps, it's going to be really hard to make that work. So I think they definitely, strategy-wise, will need to find some kind of like a standard strat, I guess, and get really good at that and comfortable with that. But that's my quick little preview of them. Runt, you got anything you want to add before we move on?
Yeah, so looking at this team on paper, they're very strong. VG was an absolute beast at Pre-Nuts 1. Like, massive average scores, very good at like running people through bases, all that stuff. But the takeaway for me is that they don't have Finn, who's their other fast player, and the other 4 players at Pre-Nuts 1 were playing very static. I think you need to move in this maze, no matter what position you are. And Pre-Nuts 1, all 4 of their other players, I think they were playing very static, and you know where they are each time, and you can set up your attacks very easily, and the defense was dropping quite easily. And on attacks, the static stand on the door and wait to go in was just getting punished. So I think if this team tries a bit harder and moves around a lot, they're going to go very far. But if they play that wait for VG to do everything, they're going to get punished and slapped down out of the top 10.
Yeah, that's probably Pretty astute observation. Anything we want to add about Dragorustaceans before we move on?
Yeah, I think Brennan just like hit it a little bit, but not having Finn is basically like giving away 2 bases because he'll just like run at you until he gets it, which is something like we noticed. So yeah, I think they'll have to rely on strategy a bit more, and they won't be able to just kind of like go with the flow. And I think that's going to come down to each of them like taking that responsibility, not just relying on one person to make a call.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, best of luck to Dragorustaceans. You know, we'll see how you go. Prove us wrong. Maybe you'll be higher than 11th. We'll see what happens. Alrighty. In 10th place, we have Orcas. So we have Rogue, Hybrid, Mr. Meeseeks, Simi Bear, Drake, and Flash. So very similar to their Bendigo roster. I think. Who are we missing? Meth? Was Method on the No, Method wasn't on that. Who's missing from Bendigo?
What's his name? Damn it, I'm blanking. We're missing their younger player, and we've got Drake instead.
Yeah. Oh, what was his name? Wazzy?
Yes. Wazzy.
Yeah. All right, and they got Drake. All
Yeah.
right. So I'm pretty sure this is their Knights roster as well. So safe to say they've probably been trained together as much as they can. But anyway,
in WA, which is not at all.
So we have I put them in 10th, Runt put them in 11th, Spider put them in 10th, Communities put them in 11th, which gave them overall 10th. So, yeah, who wants to? Since Runt, you're pretty happy to dish out the sauce. Why don't you get started on these boys as well?
I mean, it's no secret that WA like can't trade. They complain about it a lot, and rightly so. Not being able to train is a huge issue, which is why even though they were a very strong team at nationals, I think they're being bumped down a fair bit in this ranking. There's also a result of like this sort of mid-tier being very close again, like it is every pre-nat somehow. A lot of very strong tier teams in that midsection. But yeah, they haven't trained too much, and I think Hybrid didn't adjust to the system as well as we were expecting to, or the maze. So I'm not sure if Hybrid is going to be indicative of the rest of the team, but when you see a player that strong sort of struggle to find their footing in a Hobart pre-nats, you kind of go, is the rest of the team going to have similar feelings? So that's why they're maybe a bit lower than you'd expect just by like looking at them on paper, but they're insane players. Like they definitely have the potential to go off. And I think, yeah, like Rogue's really solid on a door. Having Rogue in there as a captain is going to be really good for them. Flash, I think, is going to love this maze and do really well out of it. Drake's back. I don't know how rusty Drake is, but good to see him back there. And yes, Imi and Meeseeks have got two pre-nuts under the belt, so they're going to be solid with the maze.
That'll help. Yeah, Spider, have you got anything you want to say about the Orcas?
Yeah, good mix of people. It's a interesting mix of players from like what WA has been the last couple of years. You got like Sharks, which was like a pretty aggressive and fast team with Method and Flash, mixed with a few of the other players. I think Simi's absolutely loving it, just being in like not one of those teams where she's kind of babysitting anymore. It's just full like try as hard as you want and like play seriously. Every time I see her at pre-nuts now, she's just like loving being there, loving being in the team. Although like the team blows up, if you have a serious team that isn't blowing up, then you're probably not like, I don't know, you don't care enough. So it's good to see those arguments and it's good to see frustration. But yeah, I think this is a team that we kind of butt heads a lot with. So yeah, I always enjoy versing Orcas.
Yeah. I think where did I have them? I had them in 10th. And I think you know, although as Runt was kind of saying, Hybrid seemed to struggle to adjust to Helios 2 a little bit. He's obviously like one of the legends, one of the, you know, just when you think of like insane pack on pack players, he's like one of the first ones that people think of, right? I'm sure give it in a second go, he'll be able to make adjustments and perform better than they did at Prenuts 2. Mr. Meeseeks and Simi Bear, having been at Prenuts 1 and 2, will also be a big help for this team, just in terms of you know, the arena and the meta and stuff, and you know, just a third opportunity to get on those H2 packs is gonna be big. But yeah, I'm really keen to see how players like Drake, Flash, and Rogue go, given they haven't been to a pre-nuts yet. Yeah, I think this is a team where if it was a longer comp, I would have placed them higher. But I think just because they've only got so many days to, as a team, get used to the arena, and for the people that haven't been on H2, get used to H2 as well. Yeah, that's why I put them in 10th, but I definitely consider putting them higher. Do we have any final thoughts for Orcas before we move on?
No, that sounds pretty accurate.
Yeah, happy days. All right. Moving on to the 9th place team, we have Storm. So on Storm we have Cyrex, Firebird, Moss, Big Red, Shock, and Bones. I had them. So I actually had them in 6th. I think Storm was, yeah, pretty varied. So I had them in 6th. Run and Spider had them in 9th, and Predictions had them in 10th, which gave them an overall placing of 9th place. This is pretty much the same roster as Bendigo Nats, except this Bones player is a new player. Who are they replacing from Storm and Bendigo? Does anyone know?
No, that's a good question.
Kit Kat. Yes, Kit Kat moved to like Rockhampton or something, didn't they? They moved away. Well, maybe the Queenslanders in the chat can tell us a little bit about Bones, but otherwise, Storm did really well at Bendigo Nats. I believe they got 6th place. Because we played against them to get into the, like, Aftershock played against them to get into the Golden Game. So I'm pretty sure they finished 6th. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, you know, just another year of training. You know, the roster is effectively the same outside of like one roster change. Players like Cyrex, Moss, and Shock, I think they've all been to a pre-nats so far. So that'll definitely, at least one, so that'll definitely help them. You know, I see them being a very smart, methodical, like playing a good standard game, and then, you know, all of these Queensland players, you know, I'm sure they'll pick up the packs pretty quickly. So that's why I had them quite high. I had them in 6th place, because I just remembering what their performance was like in Bendigo. But yeah, we'll see how they adjust to how the team adjusts as a whole to H2, and how their team, you know, meshes with the arena and the strategies that everyone's playing. So yeah, who wants to talk about these guys next?
Yeah, so just like looking at their players, I think they'll be a very solid team, but like whether they'll be like have the capacity to go higher against, like, 9th seems very low, but this section is cooked. Like, this is like a national level pre-nuts. Like, there are really bloody strong teams above them, and they've got a brand new player, 2 I think 2nd year players. But yeah, I think Big Red only got to play like 1 day of the pre-nuts, so that, because he got sick, so that was really sad to see. So we don't really know how he actually fares up. Shock, we've seen play on Team Magma, which was like final series, so like he's got good experience with the maze. However, he was being played on like a door for Team Magma, which he looked a bit lost on the door. So I think going back to Storm, seeing him back in his like proper position of attacking, or I think that's what he normally does, I think we're going to see a lot more out of him. So I think the players on this team are back in like their usual positions, so they're gonna play quite well. But yeah, I think this team is just gonna struggle to come together to beat those like very strong teams above them.
Yeah, I think it's less about the 9th is less about Storm and more about how cracked the teams above them are. like Grant was saying, it's a pretty damn cooked top 10. Spider, what have you got to add about Storm?
I think what I'm interested to see is like the hybrids we've seen from pre 1 and 2 with Magma, to see how that translate into Storm. So like obviously Can's doing a lot of work with Team Magma previously. I feel like Cyrax takes all of that in, which should give them like a pretty good boost in this competition, without like the power from Spartans. So yeah, I think it's another team where, as you said, Ryan, like 9th seems pretty low for a team like this, and with the experience they have in the maze, but it kind of just depends how they pair up against the people above them.
Yeah. I think one thing I do want to add before we move on, really keen to see, as Runt has been alluding to, fast movement, fast dynamic movement is really good in this arena, and Firebird's like one of the fastest people on the planet. So I'm really keen to see how he fares in the arena. Any last thoughts before we move on? Nice. Me neither. All right. Ooh, I almost went to the left just then. I almost went to the next thing, and then I was like, no, there's more. There's 3 more. Oh my goodness.
Previous pre-nuts have only had 2 per column.
Yeah.
It was 17 total. It was 3. All right. Give me a break. Good luck to Storm. Really excited to see how you go. Being like the same roster from Bendigo, pretty much. See what adjustments, how much you've improved since Bendigo. But anyway, moving on. 8th place, we have Rampage, Spider, Princess, Sadlamp, Polchrome, Wildcard, and Zam as a late addition. So I had Rampage in 8th, Runt had them in 7th, Spider had them in 7th, Community had them in 9th, which gave them an overall of 8th. Spider, all you, mate.
Yeah. I don't know. We've done like all of Pre-Nats 1 together, all of Pre-Nats 2 together. This is just like another Pre-Nats together in the lead up to Nationals. So we'll see kind of how that affects us. We're obviously going in confident with the maze now, which means we've got time to focus on like the packs and how to actually play laser tag. I've said it heaps, but the one thing we struggle with is just game sense and knowing like how to counter and how to like hold when to make the right decisions. But all we've been training recently is just mentality and decision making. So trying to make sure that like everyone in the team is confident making decisions, and doing stuff like that. We had our qualifiers recently, and we had a pretty comfy place. So for round 3 of qualifiers, we let Polchrome pretty much like run the whole comp for us, and that was a really good experience for him. So I think he's going to be a lot more confident this competition. So yeah, he should be able to have a bit more decision making coming from like further in the team, less of like Spider Show and more of like the whole team working together.
Yeah. Sick.
I think Pre-Nuts 3 is the one where these guys go, okay, it's time to win. Because Pre-Nuts 1 and 2, it felt like they were just like running drills in the arena. I think this is the one where they're going to start to like see if they can actually slap some teams around. And with the structure and the amount they've got of arena time in this maze and like just drilling it out, I think they're going to do well. Zam has been absolutely insane on this system in this maze. It suits him very well. He's one of the players that I like struggled to shoot the most, so I think him running the attack with Polchrome, who's getting more experience, is going to be very effective for the team. So I think they're going to start to step out to what they can actually achieve this comp.
Yeah. I
hope so.
I think, given how much experience you guys have in the arena on H2, how much you've probably been, I'm sure you've been training together. I fully expect Rampage to take quite a few games off of the teams above them, especially the ones that haven't been to Prenuts yet, or at least not with their full roster, whatever. Yeah, definitely going to take a bunch of games off of the teams above. But again, Rampage would be way higher if it weren't for how disgusting the teams above them are. But yeah, no, like Runt was saying, I think your team Spider have always been noted for, like, you know, maybe playing the games a little funny at prenuts or in training or at like the start of a tournament and stuff. But I think it's all in the spirit of just trying to learn as much as you can. And yeah, I'm keen to see it come to fruition at this prenuts, or maybe it's another learning one. Who knows? We'll find out soon enough, won't we? Yeah. Do we have any last things we'd like to add about Rampage before we move on?
Don't think so.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be, yeah, I think you said it last time, Brendan, and I clipped it because it was funny, but we just like flip a coin on the day and we either climb like 20 spots or just like play the wooden spoon game.
Yeah, right, like there's that too. You guys...
I think... You go.
Yeah, you guys like may not go off in the Cascades, but the stupid Ascensions runs, like, it's tough to put you guys low when there's such a high chance of you guys just climbing heaps at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think our biggest, I'll call us out heaps, but our like strength is the slow games and just like pack pointing and like pushing and pulling. But when it comes to like base racing, that's when we flop. So teams that are like dumping on us and stuff, we really have to focus because we just, like, anytime it's a base race, we can't keep up. But in the like slow games, that's what we thrive. We love like just slow little reactionary games, and I think that's just what Ascensions is, really.
Yeah, sick. Well, no, I'm really excited to see the fruition of like all the work you guys have been putting in, all the pre-nuts experience you have. Could definitely see you guys climbing a few spots, but that's up to you. We'll move on. Our 7th place team is 1UP. So we have Morrow, Guinea, Lowlance, Gunner, Celery, and Crouchy. I had 1UP in 9th, Runt had them in 6th, Spider had them in 8th, Community had them in 6th as well, which gave them overall 7th place. I think this is the first time they're playing at a comp with their full new Nationals roster. So we'll notice that there's a couple of players missing that have been replaced by Celery and Crouchy. Very interesting pickups. Yeah, I guess you guys played against 1UP at Prenuts too. What can you guys expect from these guys based on how they performed at Prenuts too?
They seemed like they were in shambles, yet they still finished almost in finals. Is how I'd kind of describe them. Like, yeah, what they were doing didn't look like it should work, but it did. The games we saw them, they were running around getting denied, but the games I didn't see them, they were just absolutely stomping the arena with pack points and bases. So I think that's the thing, right? Like, any teams that aren't prepared for them just get stumped by the amount that these guys are aggressive and they like bases and they're going to push pack points and they're going to push 3-man attacks when they're losing. So I think that's a very strong thing to do against kind of weaker teams, but I think what steps this team up this time is they're going to have Lowlance playing. He played Tasmania Arena for like 10 years, and although the Amaze has changed a lot since then, the structure of the gameplay hasn't. It's still a donut maze, so he understands how to play that. And they picked up Celery and Crouchy, who are going to be very strong, especially in the sense of like holding panels and being able to like hold those bases, which is what we saw 1UP struggle with so much the last pre-nuts, was just their base got walked through. So I think put either Celery or Crouchy in one of those bases, and that's going to help them out a massive amount, because it means they can play aggressive without just dropping it in return. So I think, yeah, Celery also went insane in Bendigo pre-nuts. For anyone that was there, I think he knows the maze. He's one of the only players with proper H2 experience. So he's going to go off and he's going to get 13k a game, I guarantee it. So I think 1UP will do surprisingly well if they can learn to shoot a base that's stationary.
Yeah, it's nice. little zing. Cool. Spider, what observations do you have about this one up team?
I think pre-2 was it was kind of interesting. So they started off just like walking in being like, all right, we have a lot to learn, we're gonna have to figure it all out, and then let's see how it goes. And after like 3 games they realized they just absolutely hated it. But then like moving throughout the comp, like Runt said, they kind of just started putting pieces together. It didn't look like they were confident or doing the right thing, but they were still like second in the last Golden game. So I think, they kind of like, I just don't think they show, it's like someone that doesn't show much emotion. They just kind of just walk through and do things. And then you like realize that they're almost demolishing everyone. I think for this comp, they should do pretty well. It kind of just depends how Celery and Crouchy jump in. I haven't seen much from them like anywhere. They're kind of just popping back up into the sport. So I'm keen to see how they jump in with this team specifically. But I think when you look at the team on paper and all the names, it's like a pretty solid team. They definitely deserve to be a couple spots higher, and I think they will when it comes to finals.
Yeah, sick. I think some of the one up guys being at Prenuts 2, the experience that's gonna lend them going into Prenuts 3 is gonna really help them, especially if, like you were saying, they were starting to put things together towards the end of it. That'll immediately put them above the teams below that haven't got that experience, I think. But yeah, talking about coin flips, we can see these guys absolutely tear through the comp and have some cracker games and cracker days, or we could see, not that. But I'm really excited. These guys are always fun to watch. Fun to like if you're reffing, fun to watch on stream. I can't wait. We can't wait to verse all of these teams. But yeah, one up games are always fun. Do we have any final thoughts for one up before we move on to our 6th place team?
Nope.
No worries. In 6th place, we have Hobart Archangels. On the team, we have Easy Points, Sega, Mantis, Shurikitty, Jellyhawk, Villain. So I had Archangels in 7th, Runt had them in 8th, Spider had them in 7th, and the community had them in 7th, which gave them, funnily enough, overall thing of 6th. Don't know how it worked out, but it did. So I think, I guess of note, I'll let you talk about them first, Runt. But obviously, these guys managed to get into that glorious grand finals at Prenuts 2, which was really, really, really awesome to see. And I think, even as home players, I'm sure they took a lot out of that 3-game series. I'll let you talk about them since they're your people, Run.
Yeah. So Prenuts 2, these guys clicked the way that we've been hoping they would for ages. Everything fit together. Their structure was great. They were playing that overly they've always played a very structured game, but it paid off at Prenuts 2. Everyone was on their A game at Prenuts 2. Their calls were very impressive. They obviously knew how to play the arena. They were leaving very few cracks, which was important, because they knew how to play and they were on their A game. This in training since then, I wish I could say that they were still on their A game, but they've been a bit off, which pains me to see it, because they've just, I don't know, mentality just hasn't been quite there. I don't know what it is, but they felt very off, and as a result, they're dropping a lot of games to Cerberus. They're a lot of the one I saw very recently in training, which terrified me, was just not calling for their anchor. Which, if you're not calling, what are you doing? No matter how quick the game gets, calls should always be there. Yeah, so I'm hoping that they pull everything together. But to be honest, they were looking better in the 2-week period before Prenuts 2 than they are looking in the 2-week period leading up to Prenuts 3. I think they will pull it a lot back on the when the competition starts. They always do, but I don't know. These guys, they just worry me before comp
They're
start.
stressing you out.
Yeah. I wish I could be more certain of their fate, but they're so up and down. This team, every comp, they're up one, down the next, and they're the exact same in training. So I really hope that it pulls together and they can really punish those out-of-state teams that don't know the arena and that don't know how it plays and that aren't prepared for H2. Yeah.
Cool.
Hoping for the best.
Spider, what are your thoughts on these guys? I mean, you were at Prenuts 2 as well, and you were there for their glorious Prenuts 2 performance. What have you got to say about these guys?
Yeah, I think there's a massive difference between Pre-1 and Pre-2 Archangels. Pre-1 seemed like they were kind of just banking on the home site, and they were just like, oh, we'll kind of see how we go. And they paired up like decently, but I think that's kind of where they realized like the potential they had. And so then Pre-2, it sounds like they put in heaps of effort in the lead up, and it was definitely noticeable at the comp. They were just walking through teams that you wouldn't, like, you look at the team list and you don't picture them doing it, but then when you watch them, like, they're just walking around kind of like calmly calling to each other, just like very composed. I think that's what kept them together. But something that like our team has done in the past is when you have like such a good experience and you play really well, you kind of like I don't know how to explain it, but you kind of like forget to ride the high basically. And like you have that performance and you're like, yeah, we smashed it, but you don't keep like going on top of that. And it seems like maybe that's what's happened here, is they've kind of like had a really awesome performance and they're stoked with it, but they haven't like kept following up after that. I think with these prenuts being super close together, like you could have easily done that and had like a cracking performance this prenuts. But I feel like once they just get into the maze and into the competition, there's a pretty high chance that they just like click and switch back on. And I think that's what we hope for.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said about yeah, it's in a way, you know, it's, I don't know, the skill set of going from like, you know, down here to up here is completely different to the skill set of like getting to there and then being able to, you know, keep going. It's like, you know, a lot of the time teams tend to go like in waves, like it goes up, it goes down and stuff. It's really hard. You know, it's really hard. It's definitely just a whole skill set in and of itself to be able to just like keep it always going upwards. But I'm not a sports psychologist. I don't know what to attribute that to. But yeah, I don't know. I think, like you said, Ron, I fully expect, even if their trainings haven't been as good as they were in the lead up to Prenuts 2, I fully expect these guys to, especially like, you know, I expect them to take some games off of the teams above them earlier on, just like while those teams are like readjusting to the arena and getting used to Helios 2 again, if they have played the arena in Helios 2 before. But yeah, no, I'm optimistic, Ron. I reckon these guys will do well. But yeah, I guess that's kind of all I have to say. Do we have anything else to add for Hobart Archangels before we move on?
Hoping for the best, but I just wish they'd give. I just have to speak to what I'm seeing is the thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. There is a bloody mozzie flying around. Yep. I gotta focus. Let's see.
1 point to home.
I kind of regret doing that. Now I'm just gonna squish mozzie on my hand, but I've got nothing around to get rid of. Oh. Anyway, Mozzie's 0, Holmes 1.